Hey guys, it is Carly bringing you your Tuesday review here on Body Bags. This is week 232, and for today's review, I decided to go with a film called Skeletons in the Closet from the year 2001, starring Treat Williams and Jonathan Jackson and Linda Hamilton. Story behind this is, if you know me, you know that I do a podcast with my friend JP called Netflix and Chill Horror Podcast, but before we were going to do that, we were going to go a different route and do something a little more original where we would basically go out to our local Goodwills and pick out some obscure horror or thriller or like sci-fi movies and then review them for the podcast, and it was a pretty cool idea, but unfortunately the Goodwills around where we live kind of suck when it comes to VHS and DVDs and, you know, finding obscure stuff. They mainly have the typical stuff like freaking Titanic or Silence of the Lambs or Twister on VHS. It's really hard to really find anything good, so we decided to scrap the idea altogether and go with the Netflix and Chill podcast. But anyway, the point of the story is this was one of the movies that I happened to pick up back in the day when we were preparing to possibly do that scrapped podcast, and it's just one I never got around to, so I decided to give it a try. And, you know, first up, it is a psychological thriller. It's not necessarily a horror movie, but it's definitely got those horror, suspenseful aspects behind it. And the story here is, I'll just read off the back. Basically, Will Reed is forced to confront the unthinkable that his 18-year-old son may be a serial killer. But is his son truly guilty, or is Will a paranoid, unstable man who for years has hidden secrets about his own past, especially about a fire that killed his wife? When a new love interest comes into his life, secrets are revealed and questions are raised about what people are really capable of. You know, I don't really like reading the backs of covers because they're either too long or too short, don't really give a good story, but I feel like that was a decent way to sum it up because for some reason I was having trouble summing it up in my own words, even though it is a pretty basic story. But yeah, you have this 18-year-old kid who, when he was 6, basically his mother died in this house fire while he was in there, and he kind of blames his father for what happened, so their relationship is not all that strong. And when the kid turns 18, there are some crimes that are being committed around their small town, and they're pretty bad crimes. They are all murders, and the father is led to believe that it might be his own son who is committing these crimes, and at the same time you believe that maybe the father is a little messed up in the head because you don't really know exactly what happened in the past with the house fire. You don't really know the whole backstory there, so you're led to believe there might be some secrets that you don't know about, and maybe the father could even be in on what the son is doing after all, or it might be him or something like that. Going into this, I didn't expect it to be overly that fantastic. You know, I just didn't expect too much, so I wouldn't be disappointed in the end. And I gotta say, I really wasn't disappointed. I was actually quite surprised by it because it did do a good job of keeping my interest throughout. I didn't think it would be able to do that because it just seemed like a generic, almost like a Lifetime type thriller movie to me. So, you know, I was actually surprised that it did keep my interest. I thought the performances were done pretty well. The acting's all really good, especially from the father, and I think the son does a really good job too as trying to be this like menacing character, but at the same time his appearance doesn't really match what he's trying to portray as this mentally ill person. He has kind of that just basic late 90s / early 2000s hairstyle that you would see like a boy band having, or like someone off of you know, one of those dramatic teenage TV shows that came out back then. He's just a little too pretty boy, I feel, for the part, but at the same time I think he does a pretty solid performance. He tries his best. He is believable. It's just like the look doesn't really match the personality in my opinion. And you know, like the story, like I said, it's you know, it's okay. You know, you've seen stories like this definitely before, especially in like those Lifetime dramas. It's kind of typical. They try to throw some like curveballs at you, make you believe like, oh, the father's crazy, maybe the son's crazy. You don't know which is which, but it's very obvious like what's gonna happen at the end. Like you know the story, like the twists don't really work, the attempted twist rather. You could just tell how it's gonna play out. It's pretty predictable, really. You know, there's a part where you do see the mother character who had died in the fire, and it's just weird because she looks very, very young, and I just feel like it's kind of bad casting with that. But other than that, I think the father character is done pretty well, and the son does a good job, and even Linda Hamilton, she plays like the love interest of the father. She does a pretty good job as well. There's just some scenes in this I find to be like kind of silly. There's literally like 3 scenes almost back to back where it's the typical 2 people say like, oh, I need to talk to you, and then they go to a restaurant and they're sitting there like talking stuff out, and there's literally like 3 scenes in this where you have that, and they all happen within like 15 minutes of the movie. I just thought it was something I noticed that I thought was kind of ridiculous because it seemed pretty repetitive. But other than that, don't really have a whole lot to say on this movie, honestly. The ending has like a line that's kind of cheesy. There's some cheesy moments in this, definitely. I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely not the best movie in the world, but like I said, I was surprised by it, thinking that it wasn't going to be that good at all, and it was going to be, you know, just quite generic and not have great acting. I thought it had decent acting. I don't really know the budget on this or anything like that. I'm assuming it probably didn't have a huge budget, and, you know, with what they had, they did a pretty good job. If you're into these, like, crime thriller movies, I would say definitely check it out. Like I said, definitely not a horror movie, more of a psychological thriller. Even says psychological thriller on the back, so that's what I'm gonna call it. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10 though. Like I said, performances pretty solid, and story, if you're into stories like that, I know some people really enjoy just these basic crime stories. They find them amusing, so, you know, if you're into it, you might actually like this one. So that is Skeletons in the Closet, 6.5 out of 10. Check it out if you are interested, or if you can even get your hands on it. I don't know if this is rare or not. Like I said, found it at a Goodwill, but yeah. Thank you guys for joining me for this Tuesday review here on Body Bags, and I will see you next